this next card, I'm going to be using the Daisy Mae Village Green Scenery paper pad. I'm going to be using the Village Pond stamp set and the Lazy Summer Days stamp set. That's the one with the chairs in, and also the die sets that coordinate. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a paper from the paper pad. So just pop these out of the way. And we've got different variations in here. So we have the pale ones and we have the really vibrant ones as well, as you can see. So I've taken one and I've chosen this one with the meadow in. But what I want to do is give it a bit of a sepia look, a bit of a vintage look. Now I'm going to do that with my mini mister here, so my little spray bottle, and what I've actually filled it with here is some coffee granules and some water, so something you'll all have around the house hopefully. Alternatively, you can soak some tea bags in some water and then put the water without tea bags into the bottle. So this can then be discarded once, not the bottle but the liquid can be discarded once you've used it, and that way you can reuse it, refill it up time and time again without wasting any ink and things. So I'm just going to spritz all over my water with the spray, and that will give it this tan look. Now I can do this in layers. The water will soak in after a little while. I'm concentrating on this lower third, or 2/3 really. So that's just going to mute the colours a little bit. Now when that's almost dry, what I'll do is I'll scrunch that up a little bit, and that will just give that a crinkle effect, so the liquid, the colour will sit in some of the crinkles that I make as well, giving it a really distressed look. So I'm going to pop that aside to dry naturally whilst I work on some stamping. So for all my images that I want to use, rather than stamping them in black, which usually is what I would do, I'm actually going to bring in a brown ink pad instead. So I'm using a VersaFine here, and I'm just going to apply the ink in the same way as I usually would, and stamp this onto some smooth cream coloured cardstock. Again, I'd usually go with white, but the cream colour will just give it that tan look slightly. So popping them to the side, I'm going to go in and I am going to colour my my deck chair here that I've got just a little bit, so some reds, and I'm going to use quite muted tones, as in darker shades rather, so that it gives it that vintage look. I'm not going to use anything that's too bright. So just running over the stripes of the chair, which doesn't take long. I'm going to leave the alternate stripes the cream colour, so that will save me some time colouring as well. And if you wanted to here, you could go in and do some shading to show the curve of the chair as well. Just for speed, I'm going to do it all a solid colour. There's a little bit of colour over that, not too much, again, not too precise, because we're not going to see as much of the detail in a moment. So my next stage, and this is why I wasn't too fussy with the colouring, I just wanted to add a little bit of colour there, is to take my foam applicator, which I believe we've got on the shows today, and I'm just putting it into my water-based ink. So I've got a distress ink. This one's called Tea Dye, and I'm just going to rub in circles. I'm just going to gently go all over that stamped image, and you can see why now. This is why I wasn't too worried about the detail, shading, maybe going over the lines a little bit didn't matter too much, because that has now really toned down the look of those colours and given it that sort of vintage photo look. So now what I'm going to do is take the die that coordinates and place it over the top, and with this one you also get the die that cuts out the inside here of the chair legs, so all those gaps in the middle can be cut out with that die, which are completely optional. I'll place a bit of tape over that, and I'll die cut that along with some other images as well that I want to add into this card. The coffee spray. Now I'm just going to do a second layer again and dry that in exactly the same way, just to keep darkening the shades, and you can keep doing this until you're happy with the colour. So just to show the difference between the two, this is the a sheet of the original faded background that we used, and then that's the new one. As you can see, it's all been crinkled up as well, which helps the the coffee to sit and pool in places, make it darker in areas, but it can be smoothed straight back out again. Now I'm going to die cut this, and I'm going to use one of the torn edge nesting dies in the label shape, and I'm using one that has a distressed edge. It's also got some stitching around there, and I'm just going to cut out from here. So I'll run that through my die cutting machine, and then we'll come back with all our pieces to put our card together. So now I have die cut my beautiful label shape, and that's in that distressed background. I've stamped, coloured and cut out in the way I showed you with the deck chair, another chair, the director's chair. I've got the pond there, I've got a sentiment here, I've got sticky on the back of all of these ready, and then I've got my ducks as well. So I'll start layering everything up. I've also cut a die cut, and this is the label shapes again. It's the slightly larger size to this one, so this will mat and layer perfectly over the top there. And what I want to do before I stick anything down is bring my bright white cardstock down a little bit. So bringing in my blending mat again and bringing in the same ink that I used for when I was doing the deck chair, when I was inking over that. I'm going to go round the edge like so, all around the front of my card, around all of those edges. So I've got score lines in this because it's a stepper card, a very simple stepper card, one A4 sheet, and I've just folded it in around about a third, and then a third again, and then that bottom third I folded in half. So a third, this is almost a third, folded in half again. I'm just going to fold it and make sure all of the edges have that same brown look to them around the edge. There, so do this top as well. Just going in small motions, and that's using this foam applicator, which is really handy because you get a nice even application of the ink without any harsh lines. There we go, so that's just softened those edges. So now I'm going to bring in my foam tape, and I'm going to put foam tape onto the back of this and then on the base here so that the panel can sit onto it. So I'm going to use a wide tape. With a wide tape it just means that I don't have to put quite so much on. It's much quicker and easier for me. This paper is still quite crinkled. That's absolutely fine. I like that effect. I like that it's got the texture in it, but you can absolutely pop it under while it's still warm from the heat gun, from drying it off. You can pop it under some books or something heavy for a few minutes and let that cool, and it will be as flat as you can get it. There. So now I'm just going to measure whereabouts this will sit on this front panel. So I'm going to take a pencil and just make a very slight mark around the edge there, so I can see whereabouts I need to put my tape, making sure that that tape won't be seen. There we go. I love this tape because it peels off really easily, and it sticks to absolutely everything. There we go. So we're building our card up. Now the next stage is I want to have my pond in there. So of course I want my pond to be shaped the same way as this label. So I'm going to bring in again my distressed label. I'm going to place this over the edge of the pond there. Pop it this way round. And then I'll tack that down and I'll run this through my die cutting machine like so. So just cut that edge to the way I want it on my card. So as you can see now, I've got my pond shaped perfectly to fit the edge of the card there. So just take the backing off. And place that down there. And we need to pop our deck chairs on. Like I say, I already have some foam tape on the back of these. So one is going to go here. Another one, I'm just going to add a little bit of interest by placing this. I've got foam tape on the back, but I'm going to place this just off the edge here. Just like so. I've got some little ducks. Just peel these off my mat, put these into the water. Now I was just sure to make sure I coloured the base edge there. You see how we've got a slight outline to all of these images, which I really like. But with the duck, I did colour the bottom of the outline in blue. The same with this little duck bobbing up and down in the water there, just so it looked like they were in the water. And lastly, so to echo this chair overlapping the frame, I'm going to overlap a sentiment this side as well. And that just ties it all together. I might bring that in a little bit more. There we go. And then that will stand up as a stepper card, and it'll be like a vintage photo somewhere that maybe will bring back some memories for someone of summer days sitting by a pond.